Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to this morning's code along, the 10 plus code along. Today we're going to be making a arcade game, so a space shooter game. It's a pretty cool game. Let me see how many we have. 22 logged in so far, so we'll just give a couple of minutes for people to get set up and get ready. While we do, let me just call out some of the names that I see. MF83, Erica, Ailish, Coder1234, Maraid, Vinya, Aoife, Ruby Red, Nicknam, JSpace, Coder1234, Coding Club, Blothine, Jacket, Minecraft, Flower123, Striped Guitar, Luna, Miguel Archer. I hope you liked some of my space facts that I shared earlier on. And Honey Badger is there as well. So let me see. So there are, how many steps do we have? We have 9 steps. 10 step is to send it to your arcade handheld device if you have one. Those in our inventor packs might have one. And then we have a challenge at the end as well. So really 9 steps is what we'll try and get through in the hour. And then if we have time, we'll keep on going. We do have another microbit to give away, but instead of doing a draw, what we're going to do is at the end, I'm going to ask you to when you've finished creating the game, to add something new into the game of your own ideas, you know, something that you think would improve it, make it better, and then to post it into our Codeverse. So if you post your project in here, we can see some projects by Sergeant11, Vigo, Benjam have posted projects. When we finish the project today, if you edit it, change it around a little bit, add something in your own idea, and then post it by clicking on Share Now. In here, let me zoom in. Click on Share Now in the Codeverse, and it'll show you how to get the link. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at the ones up there, maybe see who has the most amount of likes or reactions, and we'll pick out one of the projects and we'll send the microbit to that member. Okay, let me jump back. So let me wait for my stats to update. Okay, so I'll quickly give the instructions for anyone new to our code alongs. You're very welcome. So the way that they work is you should be seeing me here in this small little YouTube box. And what happens is I'll demonstrate a step. So I'll show you on my screen how to do the piece of code for that particular step. And when I'm doing that, if you want to go into full screen, so click on the little full screen on your YouTube box down here, and it'll put it up full screen. And then you'll get a nice clear picture of my screen and the step and the code as I add it in. And then once I've finished that, you can come out of full screen and then switch across to your tab. So you'll probably have a second tab open here for the arcade project, and you can add in the code and then come back to the instructions and just mark it as done. And that's the way we work through all the steps of the lesson. Okay, so we have 24. Let me hide my video. We have 24 people logged in. I'll give you a quick demonstration of what we are going to be creating today. If I can find the right screen, here we go. So this is an arcade project, and what you do is you'll control a little spaceship, and there'll be asteroids flying in from this side, flying in at it, and you'll need to dodge them and shoot them. So let me click on play. So you can see I'm controlling the asteroid with my arrows. I can move all around. You can see I have 3 lives there. You can see that the asteroids are going at different speeds, and they are starting from different places. And if I crash into one, I lose a life. But probably the best part about it is I can shoot them. And you'll see my score up the top right there as I shoot each one. And if you lose all your lives, so when you lose a life, there's a little animation and the whole camera shakes, and then when you've no more lives left, it'll be game over, and it'll show you your score. So that's what we're going to be making today. Pretty fun project. So what are we up to? We're up to 25. Okay, Excuse me, let's start. So the very first step is a very easy step. All we're going to do is we're just going to click on the arcade.makecode.com link in step number 1. That's going to open up the arcade project. I'm just going to click on continue for that. We're going to create a new project, so you can call it whatever you want, space shooter, or anything like that. Space shooter. So click new project, give it a name, click on OK, and it'll bring you into the project editor, the arcade project editor. So if you all want to go ahead and do step number 1, and then those of you that are logged in, come back and mark it as done so I can see your progress. Okay, I can see people are working away already. So 20 people already have completed step number 1. I'll just give a little bit more time. As usual, if you want to work ahead of me, so I'll go at a certain pace, working through the steps. If I'm going too slow for you, that's no problem. You're more than welcome to work ahead and go through the steps. All the information is in each step, so you'll see what code you need to add. You'll get little animations to show you if there's something a little bit more tricky that you need to do. It'll show you how to do it in the little animation, so you should be able to work your way through it. Those of you that want to follow along with me, just go into full screen when I'm showing you, and then come out of full screen and go do the code when I give you a chance. Okay, so we'll move on to step number 2, and in this step we're going to create our spaceship sprite. So what we're going to do is, let me zoom in the on start, we're going to get a set spaceship. So we're going to create a variable called spaceship, and we're going to set that to a sprite, and we'll design the sprite, and it's going to be of a kind player. So if you remember from our previous code alongs or the previous projects you might have done in our coding club, when you create a sprite, you can create it as an enemy, a player, a projectile, food, or you can even create your own types. So this is going to be a type player. So let me switch across to arcade. So I already have an on start here, and I'm going to go into the toolbox and let me drag this down. So I'm going to go into the sprites toolbox and get the very first one. It says set my sprite to sprite of kind player. I'll put that inside the on start. I'm going to rename it. We can leave it at my sprite, but I want to rename it to be spaceship. So I'm going to click on it and say rename and call it spaceship. So now the variable is called spaceship, and I want to design it. So I'm going to click on the little gray box here, and it'll open up the sprite editor. Zoom out. And as always, when we're doing these code alongs, what I would advise you or suggest for you to do is when you're designing a tile or a sprite or something like that, just do it basic enough for the moment so that you have enough time to follow along with us and complete the code along. And then if you want to come back later on and add in more detail, make it a little bit more designy or a bit more complicated, then by all means do that. So the way I'd draw a spaceship is I select the line tool, say we'll do it in white, and I just kind of draw a line here, here, and here for a kind of triangle. Then I'm going to get the fill tool, the paint bucket tool, fill it in, and then I'm going to switch to red and a red line, and I'm going to do a red like that, just to kind of do the fire at the bottom, and then pencil in a little bit of orange, nothing too complicated, and then a little bit of yellow. And as you can see there, it kind of looks like fire coming out the bottom. And then maybe choose a different color and maybe just kind of do the edges of the spaceship like that. So basic enough, but it does look like a spaceship. Let me get rid of my head. And then once you're done, click on the done, and you'll see your spaceship in the block, but you'll also see it in the simulator. So if I zoom in, you'll see my spaceship there. So if you want to go ahead and do that code, so you're going to be getting a set my sprite to block from the sprites toolbox, and you're going to, if you want, rename it. You can leave it as my sprite if you want, but I would suggest rename it. It's always good to name your variables and your sprites and different things like that if you're creating functions or blocks, to name them with something that makes sense. So then when you see them in the code, like if it just says my sprite, you might have 4 different sprites and you might know which one it is. But if it says spaceship, then you know what sprite it is. So that's why I'd always suggest that you do name them something that makes sense. Now let me switch across and mark mine as done. Oh, I got a hippo. So where are we? We have 11 coders already have completed step number 2. So well done, everyone. I'll give just a little bit more time. And again, don't be too complicated in how you design your spaceship sprite for the moment. You can always come back, add in, you want to add in little rocket boosters or, a little kind of cockpit area or anything like that. You can do that later on. And that's the cool thing about when you're creating code, when you're creating projects, is that you can iterate through them. So that means kind of build on top of what you've done. So you can do a version, and then you might get an idea one day, and you come back, you open up that project, and you add in your idea, and you just keep on working on it, make it better and better and better. Okay, so we have 15 coders have completed that step. I'll just give a little bit more time just to kind of get a sense, 16 sense of how many people are working along with me. Next step that we're going to be doing is we're going to control the spaceship. So at the moment, the spaceship is just sitting there in the middle of the screen, but we're going to control it with our arrow keys. So your up, down, left and right arrow keys on your keyboard, we're going to program those to move and control the spaceship. Okay, 19 coders have completed step number 2. That's brilliant. Well done, everyone. If I go too fast for anyone, if the pace or the speed I'm going and you kind of get left behind a little bit, don't worry. Try not to get, I know it can be frustrating, but don't worry. The project stays up there. All the information and the instructions for each step stays up there. You can take your time, work on it at your own pace. We'll also put up the video. So when at the moment we're broadcasting live, but when we're finished, we'll put up the recorded video and we'll pop that up in the little box there. So you can even play back and go through it if you need, just to see how it was created. But also, as I said, the instructions are there in the steps, so you'll be able to work away on those. Finish later on today, finish tomorrow, whenever you want, it'll be there for you. Okay, so we're up to 20 coders have completed step number 2. So we're going to move on to step number 3, and that is we're going to control the spaceship. So we can see it in the little animation here moving around. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in 2 blocks. We're going to say move the spaceship. So we created a spaceship variable. We're going to move that spaceship with the buttons. And we're going to set the velocity x, which is left and right, to be 150. So that's the speed that it'll move when you press the left or the right arrow. It'll move 150 speed. And vy, velocity y for the y-axis is up and down. So we'll set that 150 as well. And then we'll also set the spaceship to stay on the screen, and I'll show you what this block does now in a second. So I'm going to switch across to arcade, and I'm going to go into the controller, or let me get my toolbox here. I'm going to go into the controller toolbox and get a move my sprite with buttons, and that's going to go in underneath there, and I'm going to select spaceship. So I want my spaceship spaceship variable. I'm going to click the little plus icon there, so it lets me set the velocity x and y, and I'll set both of these to be 150. So now in my simulator, once that reloads the code, you can see I can move it up and down, left and right. Now, if you remember, I said we're going to add in a block to make it stay on screen, and the reason we do that is this, because at the moment we can just shoot off the screen, and that's not what we want for the game. We want it to stay on the screen. So what we're going to do is, let me get a reminder of what the block is. We're going to set spaceship to stay on screen. So that is in the sprites toolbox. So set spaceship to stay on screen. There it is there. So scroll down a little bit and you'll get set. It'll say my sprite to stay on screen and a little toggle button. And we'll put that in the bottom inside the on start. We'll change it again to be spaceship, and we'll leave it at stay on screen on. So that means when we try and move off the screen, it actually just stays on. Okay, so if you're in full screen and watching on YouTube, if you want to come out of full screen and add in that code, I'll give you a little bit of time. So you're going to add in those 2 code blocks, the move spaceship with buttons, and then the set spaceship to stay on screen. So it just stays within the border of the screen, or within the area of the screen. Okay, brilliant. So 16 coders already have completed that step. Well done, everyone. just take your time, keep on working through at your own pace. And then we're going to move on in a minute to step number 4. So that's, we're going to set the number of lives. So at the start of the game, you'll have a certain amount of lives. So we'll say 3 lives at the start. So it's just one block to set these. And that's the really cool thing about programming in the MakeCode Arcade program editor or project editor, is that it's set up for games and it has loads of blocks that are just really easy to use and create a game. So instead of having to create, normally, say we were doing this in Scratch, we would need to create a lives variable. Then when green flag clicked, we need to set the lives to 3 and so on, and then, you know, change lives by -1 if you crash or whatever. Here we just have a set life to 3 and it knows what it is. It's okay, you're creating a game, you want a number of lives, and here you go, there's 3 lives. It'll put the 3 hearts up the top right. So if I zoom in here, it'll show you the amount of lives you have, and it automatically, when you lose a life, when you get down to 0, it'll automatically just go onto the game over screen because it knows what you're doing. Okay, so how many do we have? So we have 21 coders. Okay. So now we'll move on to step number 4. So in step number 4, as I said, we're just going to add in, let me zoom in. We're going to add in the set life to 3 block. So that's easy enough to do. Into Arcade, we're going to go into the Info toolbox, and in here you have a set life. It already says 3, so brilliant, we don't even need to change it. Pop it in there inside the on start, and then you'll notice when your simulator reloads, you'll have your 3 lives up the top left there. So if you want to go ahead and do that. Incidentally, if you put the lives up to say 15 or something like that, so let me zoom in here. If I set my lives to 15, then in the simulator, the way it displays that is it shows just 1 heart, but then it shows X15, so the amount of lives, so life by 15. So that's the way it displays it. I think only up to 3 or 4, it just shows a single heart. So I'll set mine back to 3. Oh, there we go. Okay, let me mark that as done and get my legendary motorcycle. Okay, brilliant. So I can see people are working away. Maybe I'm going a little bit slow, but that's okay. So we have 21 coders have completed that already. It's just one block, so it's easy enough to do. Okay, well, in that case, we'll move along to the next step, which is step number 5. And that's where we're going to create the asteroids. So if you remember at the demo at the start, there were asteroids coming in from the right at different points, and we had to dodge and shoot them. So there's a really handy block in Arcade called on game update every, and we can set the amount of milliseconds. So what we can use this block and just, you know, if you use this in say 1,000 milliseconds, what it'll do is every second it'll just run whatever's in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an asteroid sprite, and we're going to design it, and we'll set it to be a kind enemy. So let me switch across to Arcade. I'll move this down, and we're going to go into the game toolbox, and in here there's on game update every 500 milliseconds, and we're going to change that to 1 second. And then we're going to go into sprites, and again we're just going to get a set my sprite 2. We'll put it in and we'll rename it. So, oh, I said new, that's not what I want. Cancel that. Let me rename, and we're going to put in Asteroid, Asteroid, Asteroid. And instead of kind player, we'll call it of kind enemy, like so. And now, same way, we're just going to design it. So click on the little grey box in the block. It'll open up this sprite editor. So for an asteroid, I just kind of choose a kind of pale color. Use the pencil, draw a kind of rough circle. Not a perfect circle, because they're not perfect spheres. Paint it in, and then maybe just use the pencil tool and a bit of a darker color, and just do a couple of kind of shades or shadows in it just to make it look a little bit better. And then once you're happy with it, again, without getting too complicated for the moment, click on done and you'll see that it pops into the block there. And then in your simulator, we'll see we have the spaceship and now we have an asteroid. So every 1 second, a new asteroid is being created, but they're actually being created on top of each other at the moment because we haven't set them to move or where they create, so we can only see one. So if you want to go ahead, if you haven't already started, go ahead and add in that code. I'll mark my step as done and see how everyone is doing. Okay, so 14 done so far, and 22 have completed step number 4 to set the number of lives. So I'll hang on till we'll get 22 coders have completed step number 5. Just take your time. So you're going to go into the game toolbox and get an on-game update every block and change that to be 1000 milliseconds, so 1 second. And then into the sprites toolbox and get a set my sprite to sprite of kind player. We'll rename it, so it's not called my sprite, it's called Asteroid. So this is just creating a variable called Asteroid, and we'll store the sprite in that. And we're going to say it's a kind enemy. And the reason why we have different kinds of sprites is then we can actually run code that says, well, if a sprite of kind enemy hits off a sprite of kind player, then we can do something based on that. You know, and that's why we actually have different kinds or different types of sprites. So again, when you're designing your asteroid, just nothing too complicated for the moment. You can always come back and make it, you know, improve it, you know, add a little bit more thought and a little bit more effort into it when you have a little bit more time. Okay, we're up to 19 coders. See Mr. Cheese has joined to code along. Welcome along, Mr. Cheese. While we're waiting, I'll call out some people. I'll try and see anyone that I haven't called out. So Sixt96, Carol 2000. I didn't call you out earlier on. Landlord 656, I'm not sure if I called you out or not, so you're very welcome. Flower 123, Plaque, Sergeant 11. They're all Shawnee Boy 2009. Didn't call you out earlier on. Jacket, Star Behan. You're all very welcome. So if you are joining a little bit late, no problem. Just take your time. All the instructions are there. Work through the steps one by one, testing your code, testing that it's working. You should have all the information on the screen in the instructions. And then we'll also put the video, once we're finished recording, we'll put the recorded video up here for people to play back later on. Okay, what are we up to? We're up to 22 coders have completed step number 5. So we said we'd wait till we get 22. So who's going to be that 22nd coder to get there? And then we'll move along to step number 6. And in step number 6, what we're going to do is we're going to program the asteroids. So at the moment, we've just created them. So every 1 second, a new asteroid is being created. Oh, great. We just got 22 coders. So every 1 second, an asteroid is being created. But now what we're actually going to do is we're going to program them to zoom in a little bit. We're going to get them to start on the right-hand side. So somewhere off the screen on the right-hand side. And then in a random place between the top and the bottom of the screen. So create them on the right hand side in a random place in the top and bottom of the screen. We're going to make them go right to left. And then when they go off the screen, we're going to say AutoDestroy. So what that does, so any code or program or game, it uses up memory and uses up processing power of whatever computer or handheld that you have. And you need to take care that when it uses up too much, things start kind of getting laggy and the computer goes slow. So when we're coding, we always want to do it in a kind of clean, efficient way. So that is why when these asteroids go off the screen, we could leave them there, you know, and they're still in memory. They still could be used in the game, but that's taking up the processing power and memory. And we don't want that. So what we do is we'll set them to, so here's the code we're going to add. We're going to set them to AutoDestroy, which means when they go off the screen, that they're going to just be destroyed and they're not used in the memory anymore. So it frees it up for the new ones and the other processing that we'll need to do. Okay, so let's add in these 3 pieces of code. So I think I'll do this one first. So we're going to set the position. So on the right hand side, which is the X, and then Y axis is a random place between 0 and 120. So if I switch across to arcade, so let me just check my code again. Okay, so we're putting it inside the on-game update. I'm going to go into Sprites toolbox. Let me zoom in. And I'm going to set the position, so the XY position. So I'm going to take that in, put it underneath. Again, I'm going to select my spaceship. So the X position, we want, can I move this across a little bit so we can see? We want to set the X position to be way off here on the right, 160. So this gives you a handy little tool which actually shows you the XY update as you move it around. I just want to set it on the right, so I'll click there. I'll put in 165, that's fine. Makes no difference once it's off the screen. And then for the Y position, we want to get a random number between 0, which is the top, and 120, which is the bottom. You see the Y number updating there, 0 at the top and 120 at the bottom. So we're going to go into the math toolbox, and in here, if I can scroll down, oh, there we go, is the pick random 0 to 10. And we'll put that in for the Y, and we'll say 0 to 120. Okay, so now that's where they'll get created on the right hand side, somewhere between 0 and 120 on the Y axis. So the next piece of code that we want to add is the set position to, oh sorry, we just added that, the set velocity to. So we're going to set the speed of them. Okay, so if I go back in here, and I'm going to go into the sprites, and there's a set velocity to Vx and Vy. We'll drag that in and put it underneath. Again, we'll select our spaceship, and for velocity X, what did we say? I'll just quickly check my code. We said we're going to pick a random number between -20 and 100. So this is going to set their speed. Because they're going from right to left, we have to put in a negative number, and we want them going at different speeds. So that's why we're doing pick a random number between -20 speed and -100 speed for the velocity. So let me go back in, and we're going to go to the math toolbox again, and we'll get a pick random and put it in for the Vy. And what do we say? We said -20 to -100. And then for the velocity Y, that's up and down. So a positive number in here is the velocity going up to make it go up, and then a negative number would make it go down. Or actually, that might be the other way around. Sorry, minus would make it go up, and positive makes it go down. So as you can see at the moment, I've set it to 50, and if you can see what's happening, it's actually going down. Oh, I've just noticed this. I've made a mistake. You can see that the spaceship is coming in from the right and moving down. That's because I've set the code to be spaceship, and that's incorrect. I shouldn't have set it for that. I should actually set it for the asteroid. So I'm going to quickly change those back to asteroid. And now my simulator, it should be the asteroids that are being created here. And they're going down. We don't want them to go down. So what we're going to do is put in 0. If I can scroll across. Oh. Put in 0 in the velocity Y. And now they should come in from the right, but go straight across. And as you can see, they're different places, different speeds, which is going to make the game a little bit trickier. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and do that step, try not to make the mistake that I showed, that I did there, where I added in, when I was adding in the set position and the set velocity, I was setting them for the spaceship when I should have been setting them for the asteroid. So you'll see in the code there, it does actually say asteroid. Oh, I forgot to put in the very last piece, which is set asteroid AutoDestroy to on. So sorry, I'm going to quickly go in and do that. So In the sprites toolbox, there is a set AutoDestroy. We'll put that in. We'll select the asteroid and set that to on. And that means when they go off the edge of the screen, that copy of the asteroid will just be deleted and we won't be used in memory. So it frees it up. Okay, if you haven't already, if you want to go ahead and do that code. And I'll see, so brilliant. Okay, so 21 coders have already done that. Well done, everyone. I'll give it just a little bit more time for people to finish that. So let me remind myself and see how many steps there are. Okay, we're flying through this. So we're half an hour in and we have programmed the asteroids. So we need to program to fire the rockets. So we're going to fire a rocket out of our spaceship on the A button, but that will actually be the space key on your keyboard. If you do have one of these devices, so let me go on to main screen. If you do have one of these devices, you can load it on, the game onto it, and you can actually program the buttons, you know, so to shoot, so directional, up, down, left and right, and then A and B for shooting and doing different things. So you can actually program those. But on our for the actual simulator itself, it's the space bar, or you can click here, or if you just press space bar, it'll actually fire them. Okay, so we're up to 22 coders have completed step number 6, so we'll move on to step number 7, and that's to fire the rockets, as I was saying. Okay, so the code for this is pretty easy. As I was saying earlier, Arcade is kind of set up for creating games. It makes it very quick and easy to create games. So we have an on A button pressed block, and we'll use that. And what we'll do is we're going to create a new sprite variable. We're going to call this projectile. You can call it rocket if you want, just something that makes sense. And we'll say set that, let me zoom out or drag it across. We're going to set that to be a projectile, and it's coming from the spaceship sprite. And what speed it's going at VX, velocity x 200. So that means it's going to make it move from left to right. So we can see it there in the little animation. Okay, so let's add in this code. So I'm going to switch across to Arcade, get myself a little bit of room. I'm going to go into the controller toolbox, and we see we have the on A button pressed block, and we drag that in. And then I'm going to go into the sprites toolbox and scroll down to projectiles. In here, there are, in the projectile section, there's 2 blocks. There's a set projectile and it's projectile from side. So you can actually make them come in from different sides of the screen. So we maybe could have used that for the asteroids, but we did it a different way. But also you can set a projectile to get created from a sprite. So wherever that sprite currently is, that's where the projectile will get created. So we're going to use this second one here. So I'm going to drag that and put it inside here. Let me center and move across so I can see what we're doing. Okay, so we're saying set projectile to, and we're going to say it's going to come from the spaceship. And the speed we said is 200 VX and 0 VY. So it's just going to go left to right straight. It's not going to go up or down, just left to right. And then we just need to design it as usual. So go into the sprite editor. And for a rocket, the way I do it is I just do it kind of simple enough. I just do a kind of straight line, and then I finish off with a little bit of a kind of pyramid shape. Let me get that uniform. And then again, I just do a kind of reverse pyramid shape, and with some red, a little bit of orange in there, and then a little bit of yellow, just to kind of make it look like flames shooting out of the back. And then if you want to, I don't know, put a little head on it or something like that. Why is that not going on? There we go. You can even put more design on it if you want. And then once you've designed your projectile, your rocket, click on done, and it'll be in there. And as we've added the code, so it's a simple enough piece of code, but it's really effective. So you can see my game moving around, and now all of a sudden, each time I press space, so space, 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 it really quickly fires out a rocket. And it's going at the velocity x that we set it to, which is 200, which is left to right. And the velocity y was 0, so it's just going straight across. It's not going up or down, just straight across. So if you want to go ahead and add in that code, so on A button pressed, and you're going to get a set projectile from, and you'll set that from the spaceship. Vx is 200, the Vy is 0. And then if you want to go in and design your rocket, your projectile, design it anywhere you want. But again, just keep it simple for the moment. And later on, if you want to go back in, make it look a little bit better, then by all means, that's the best time to do it. Okay, I got a mountain from the outdoor series. I think that's telling me to go out for a walk today. Okay, so we have 15 coders already have completed step number 7. So that's people that are working ahead. Well done, that's no problem. Work ahead, work at the same speed as me, or even if I'm going a little bit too fast, just work at your own pace. Take your time, you'll be able to get through the project. As I said, all the instructions are available. They'll stay up there, and we'll put the video up later on. Oh, that's pretty apt. Coding Club got a Starfighter rare from the Space Series award. So you could even design, I suppose you could design your spacecraft like that, where it has like kind of little wings and little rockets or lasers either side of it. Okay, so we're up to 15 coders. In the next step, now I'm not going to move on to it yet, but I'm just going to talk about it for the moment. In the next step, we're going to destroy the asteroid. So remember I said earlier on, when we were creating the different sprites, the spaceship sprite and also the projectile, or the asteroids, we set the spaceship as a type of player, and that's the type of sprite it is, a player sprite. And we set the asteroids to be enemy sprites. Because they're different types of sprites, we can now detect when those two different types touch off each other, when they overlap. And that's what we're going to do in this step. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do it for the projectile. So if your projectile, which is, so if your sprite of type projectile, which is our kind of rockets, if they overlap with the sprite of type enemy, which is our asteroids, we're going to destroy the asteroid and we're going to change the score by 1. So you're going to get 1 point. Okay, so we're up to 19 coders. Again, I'm going to wait for 22. We have another 25 minutes and there's only 2 steps left, and then I have a little bit of a challenge at the end. So we've plenty of time. Again, we will give away a microbit to one of the coders today, but the way we're going to do it is a little bit different. Instead of just picking a random coder, we're going to encourage you to, once you finish this project, to add in your little twist into it, your idea, change it some way, improve it somehow, and then post that into our Codeverse, and we'll see them all there. We'll all maybe try and get them so they're all kind of listed together, so people can look at them and maybe react, and we'll pick one of the projects and one of the coders out and send off the microbit to that coder. Okay, so we're up to 21. I'll wait till we get to 22. If you're new to our code-alongs, you're very welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. It takes a little bit of kind of getting used to the best way to do it. Go into full screen, then to view the instructions, come out as full screen, switch across, create the code, switch between the instructions tab and then the coding tab. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, you should be okay. Okay, we're up to 22. Brilliant. So 22 coders have completed step number 7. So we're going to move on to step number 8 to destroy the asteroids. So if you'll see in the little animation here, when the rockets, when the projectiles hit the asteroids, they explode, and then you also get a point. You'll see the points at the top right go up as they're hit. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in this on sprite of kind projectile overlaps other sprite of kind enemy. And then we're going to destroy the other sprite. So that's the enemy sprite, the asteroid sprite. And we're going to put on a little ashes effect for 200 milliseconds. So for 0.2 of a second. And then we're going to change score by 1, get a point. Okay, so let me switch across to arcade, create a little bit of room for myself. So I'm going to go into the sprites toolbox, and I think there's an overlap section. There's an overlap section here, and the very first block in there we're going to take in. Let me zoom in a little bit. So we're going to say on sprite of kind projectile, so our rocket, overlaps other sprite of kind enemy or asteroid. So projectile and enemy, rocket, asteroid. And then let me check my code. We're going to say destroy. So into sprites, into the sprites toolbox, and we're going to say destroy my sprite. Put that inside. We're going to get rid of this my sprite block. We don't need it. And what one do we want to destroy? We want to destroy the asteroid one. So that's the other sprite. If I center that. That's the other sprite of kind enemy. We're dragging here. I'll do that again. We're dragging it from here and putting it into here. So this, when this code runs, when this block runs and it gets triggered, it loads whatever asteroid was overlapped into this variable. And then we can use that variable. So we can say destroy it, and we'll say destroy it with, where is ashes? I think ashes looks best, because it's like it disintegrates, and we'll do it for 200 milliseconds, so quite fast. And what else did we say? Oh yeah, change score by 1, very important. So into the info toolbox and get a change score by 1, so you get a point. Now when I look at my simulator, I run that new code, we can see I'm shooting them away, and you can see up the top right there of the little screen, I'm up to 6, 8, you can see my score going up. So if you want to add in that code, go ahead and do it now. So you're going to get on sprite of kind overlaps other sprite of kind, and you're going to set the first one to be projectile. So when a projectile overlaps with an enemy, and then you're going to get a destroy my sprite block from the sprites toolbox, but you're going to take out my sprite and drag in other sprite, and then you can choose whatever effect you want. My recommendation is not to do it too long, because look, if I put this up to 500 milliseconds, I'll show you what I mean for the effect of it destroying. It just stay. Oh, I need to click here. It just, why is that not working? Oh, I need to click here, sorry. So when I shoot them, you see it takes quite a bit of time for them to kind of get rid of, remove themselves from the screen. And I think it kind of looks better if I change this to 200 millimeters and it reloads. This is just my personal preference, but I think it looks better when they kind of get destroyed and get cleared from the screen a little bit faster. So that's why I'd recommend a quicker effect, or a smaller amount of time on the effect. But you can decide what way you want to do it yourself. Okay, so let me mark my step as done, and let's see everyone's progress. Oh, cool. That's one of my favorite ones. It's the planet Moon. So we have the Moon orbiting the planet. I don't know if you saw the cool fact. Do I still have it? I was putting it up in the GIFs earlier on. There was one, I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is here. Let me try and put this up. And the fact is, it'll pop in here now in a second. The fact is, and I never really thought about this, but I suppose when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, is that asteroids can have their own moon. So like there's asteroids out there, probably way out in the Kepler belt, I think it's called, that are probably so big that their gravitational pull will actually have other asteroids' moons orbiting them. So I thought that was a cool fact to know. Okay, what are we up to? We're up to, so for step number 8, we have 21 coders have completed step number 8. So when you complete a step, just click on, just refresh the code, or it actually refreshes it automatically in the simulator, and just test it out. Make sure that it is working as you expect it to work. We all make mistakes. I've made a mistake in this project where the spaceship was being created on the right hand side and was coming in, where, as opposed to the asteroids, because I'd selected the wrong sprite variable in the block and I had to fix that. So that often happens when you test your code. You'll find something that isn't working quite right, but that gives you an opportunity to kind of think, okay, well, it's the spaceship that's appearing on the right. So where's the block that makes it appear on the right? And then you go and you say, oh, I put in spaceship there instead of asteroid. So it's a good way of kind of learning. You know, it makes you kind of understand the blocks a little bit more and see the effects that they're having when you make a mistake. Okay, so what do we have? We're up to 22, right? We have our 22 coders. I know there's more logged in working away, so there's probably a few people that aren't quite up to step number 8 yet. That's fine. You've got loads of time. As I said, the project stays up there and all the instructions, so you can complete it in your own time. Okay, so we're going to move on to step number 9, and that's losing a life. So how you lose a life is when you crash into an asteroid, you're going to lose a life. So what we're going to do is you'll lose a life. It'll actually do a little fire effect, and then it'll make the camera kind of shake. It does a little kind of rumble action on the camera, which is a kind of cool effect. It's almost like a haptic effect, which is like, you know, feedback. You know, I don't know if you have PlayStation or Xbox controllers where they actually vibrate. Now, this isn't it vibrating, but because it shakes, it kind of gives the impression or the feeling that it's vibrating. Okay, so what are we going to add? We're going to use another one of these overlaps blocks. So on sprite of kind overlaps with another sprite of kind. But this time we're going to say, so when the player, so a sprite of kind player, which is the spaceship, overlaps with the other sprite of kind enemy, so again the asteroids, what we're going to do is we're going to destroy the asteroid with a fire effect. We're going to do the camera shake, as I said, and then we're going to change life by -1. We're going to take away a life. So let me switch across to arcade. So I could duplicate this block, but I'm just going to drag it in. It's easy enough. It's only a small bit of code. So into the sprites toolbox again, scroll down to the overlaps section and take in the big block there. And I'm also, before I set that up, I'm actually just going to get my destroy block from the sprite toolbox. So put that in there. Okay, so we're going to say on sprite of kind player, so the spaceship overlaps with other sprite of kind, and here we want enemy. And then so we're going to destroy the enemy sprite, which is the asteroid. So we're going to get rid of this, don't need you. And we're going to take you and put you in there. And we're going to say this time we'll say fire. Again, I'd recommend quite quick animation, quick effect of 200 milliseconds. And then we're going to go into the info toolbox and change score by, oh, sorry, not change score. Change life by -1, so to lose a life. So let's have a look at the simulator here. Let it reload. So I can shoot and destroy them, but if I crash into one, we see the fire effect. Oh, I never added in the rumble. I'll do that now. So one more block to add in here, and that's in the scene toolbox. Oh, game over, I lost all my lives. So into the scene toolbox, right down the bottom, you're going to get a camera shake. Camera shake by 4 pixels for 500 milliseconds. So pop that in anywhere, it doesn't really matter where. And then you'll see when you crash into one, you see that it kind of rumbles and shakes. It's quite a cool effect. and you'll see there, no more lives, so game over. So if you want to go ahead and add in that code in step number 9, lose a life. I can see 20 coders have already done it. Well done. I'll give you some time. And then, so we've 10 minutes left. So we'll give you a couple of minutes for people to finish off that lose a life, step number 9. And then we'll have a look at a little bit of a challenge. Oh, just looking down the feed here, I can see an award I've never seen before. Sergeant 11 is after getting icicles from the Winter Series. They look pretty cool. Honey Badger got a Twitch. Okay, I'm going to mark. Oh, no, shouldn't have done that. Now I don't know how many people are completing step number 9. Not to worry. I'll give a little bit more time. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. In the meantime, while I'm giving some time for people to finish, so just to remind you all, so we're gonna, for the logged in coders, so we've people viewing that aren't logged in, you're all very welcome. You're always welcome to come along and join in our code alongs. But for the people that are logged in, we're going to be giving away a microbit. And the way, so we, up to now in our code alongs, the way we have been giving these away is just choosing a random coder. We've been running a little bit of code just to get a random number for a coder in our code along. But the way what we're going to do it today is once you finish the project, I want you to add something into it. You know, have a little think of how you would like to improve the project. It can be one thing, it can be 5 things, whatever you want. And to put in something from your own idea, and then to share it in our Codeverse. So our Codeverse, if you don't know, go up to the very top and click on Codeverse, and in here you can share projects, so we can see projects that other people have shared, and people can react to them and so on. You just click on Share Now, and what you do is you put in the name of your project, a little bit of description about it, and then the link. The way you get a link for an arcade project, if you just click over here, it'll give you the instructions of how to actually get that link to share. So that's the way I think we'll give away the microbit, is that we'll get people to add in, improve the project any way they see fit, and then submit it, and we'll have a look and we'll see, you know, whoever kind of had the best idea, or the, you know, put in the best, you know, something really interesting in their code, we'll pick it out that way. I think that's the way we'll do it. Okay, I don't actually know, because I went ahead and marked my step number 10 as done. I don't know how many people are have completed lose a life. So when you do complete step number 9, go ahead and mark step number 10 as done, even though, you know, you mightn't actually have one of these. These are the actual handheld devices where you can actually play these games. They're really cool. So you can code your own games. Is that the, yeah, that's it there, the actual project itself. I can get it to zoom. So you can actually code the games and load them onto the computer and bring it around, show your friends, let them play it, see if they can beat the high score. They're really cool. You can buy these yourselves. They're arcade handheld devices, or if you are part of our, if you are subscribed to our inventor packs here in Coding Ireland, then these are one of the kits that we send out to you. Okay, so let's have a look at the challenge. So the challenge is how you would add a power up to the game. So if you want, this can be your idea. If you're submitting it, trying to win the microbit, this can be your idea, or you can choose something else. So if you think about games, like, you have power-ups. So, you know, the asteroids are coming in and they destroy you, but like, you could have something come in that if you collected that, it could give you an extra life. I'm sorry, I need to turn off this Game Go device. So that is a challenge for you to add in. We actually do have the code here, and you can click on that and you can see the code. But what I would suggest is before you do it, have a little think about yourself of how you might do it, and then you know, go and try and do it yourself. And if it doesn't work, come back, click on this, see the code here, and you can always check what way you can actually do it. So this is the code I've added in here is for a power up will come in the same way an Asteroid will, but it's like random every 30 seconds or something. And if you run into that and collect it, you get an extra life. So that's a power up. So that's the challenge. You can do that power up challenge, or you can do something else that you kind of come up with yourself, and then submit it into the Codeverse. So we will keep on continuing with our code alongs, our live code alongs every Saturday morning. So we're going to keep on going at 9:30 for 6 to 9-year-olds and 11 o'clock for 10+-year-olds. So you're all very welcome. You can, if you want to even join in the 6 to 9-year-olds, you know, you're welcome to do those ones as well. So well done everyone today. Let me give you a clap. This is one of my favorite gifts. So well done everyone today for doing it. If you haven't completed it, oh, there's my clap. A little kind of slow golf clap that goes quite fast at the end. Well done today. If you haven't completed it yet, keep on going. As I said, the project stays up there. The video recording will pop up into the top right here later on. So give yourselves a clap and a pat on the back. I hope you have a good weekend, and we will see you next week, hopefully. Bye.